You're about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So how are your dreams when you sleep? Do you get good dreams? It depends on what I watch on TV or what I experience earlier in the day. If I think about a spider or I see something that has a spider, like Home Alone, the spider, I will have a spider or nightmare in my dream, which is not good. So I cannot think or talk about spiders. I cannot watch Squid Game before I go to bed. I finished the third season. Okay. There will probably be an American version, it looks like. And I will see that. I do like Squid Game, but I cannot watch that before I go to bed. And so usually before I go to bed, to ensure that I don't have bad dreams, I have to think of happy places. You know, maybe it's, me in Rivendell, right? With Aragorn taking me off to a nice secluded place. I'll come up with something that I could fall asleep with so it doesn't affect my dreams. Well, there's a study saying what you eat could affect your dreams. We know that alcohol could affect your dreams and cause you to have very poor sleep if you drink right before you go to bed. But now they're saying dairy could affect your sleep. In this study published in the Journal of Frontiers in Psychology, 40.2% of participants reported certain eating habits affected their sleep. They looked at 1,000 college-age participants who submitted their experiences from January to April 2023. They looked at dairy, desserts, sweets, fruit, and meat. 25% of participants said at least one of the food groups worsened their sleep. 20% said at least one made their sleep better. Now, this is according to CBS News. They said desserts and sweets, spicy food, dairy, like milk, yogurt, and cheese, were mainly blamed for worse sleep, while fruit, herbal tea, and vegetables were among the top foods that reportedly made their sleep better. So this idea of drinking warm milk to go to bed might need to be reevaluated. When they asked about their dreams, 5.5% of participants reported that food affected their dreams. Nightmares being attributed mostly to desserts and sweets at 31% and dairy at 22%. Now, I don't drink milk. I don't eat a lot of cheese, so I've been lucky. But boy, do I like my sweets. So according to study authors, they said while we still lack substantive evidence that these participant observations for food and dreaming are, in fact, accurate, there is some suggestive evidence for their accuracy. So we call this associative. We didn't really do cause and effect. We didn't give you guys a glass of milk and then see if you had a nightmare that night. But the association between dairy consumption and disturbing dreams, remember how we talked about our gut health and microbiomes and how that could affect our brains and our sleep? Maybe that's in relationship to that. And that's a very easy study. For those of you lactose intolerant, how were your dreams? Now, I want to have good dreams. I had my dream last night. I don't remember much about it, but it was stressful. And all I remember is it was my friend's mom, who's in her 90s, who I spend a lot of time with and take her to bingo. She was having some difficulties. I don't remember the specifics because my dream was really messy. It's hard to remember. But I remember waking up nervous that she wasn't doing well. Now, I am very, very lucky that my dreams don't come true. I don't know how you guys do it, where you dream about something that ends up coming true. I would be very anxious because I've just had some of the weirdest dreams. And, where family members might die or something happens to me or I'm pregnant again. I get that dream a lot where I'm pregnant. I don't want to be pregnant again. And I can't be because I've had a hysterectomy. So that would be, I love kids, but I would not be ready for that. You know what dream I have? A very recurring dream. So I used to wait tables. And a recurring dream I have is where I forgot the order and I'm late on the orders and I got my timing all off. I used to be a really good waitress, food server. I don't know how I had the timing down. I nailed it. Maybe it's because I had experience as a hostess. I worked a lot when I was going to school. And so I have this recurring dream that customers are getting mad because their order is sitting there and I'm mixing up the order. Why would I be dreaming about that when I haven't waited tables in over 20 years? Another dream I have, which I can't stand, is a dream that I never finished medical school. I'm sure my patients are worried about me having that dream. I did finish medical school, but I have these dreams, and this is a recurring dream, where I am missing classes, where apparently I didn't go, and the school tells me, you missed all these classes. You need to go. And I don't know where the classes are. I don't know how to make it up. I get this dream every month, well, at least once a month. So I need to look at what I ate that night. I think that's a fascinating concept. What do we eat? Because I really want us to have better sleep. It's hot, and none of us are not sleeping well. And I cannot afford to have the air conditioning on as low as it needs to be. But a cooler room helps. Maybe you have to shut off the rooms you're not in and convert the fan to the room you're in to cool it down. Maybe you should have ice water before you go to bed. A lot of people sleep naked. I couldn't do that to my husband. He'll have nightmares. That'll affect his sleep. But sleeping with fewer clothes might sometimes help you sleep. Blackout curtains, telling the dog to quit snoring and kicking you in his sleep. That's interesting. 1-877-DOC-DALI.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So I was in the 80s, a student, young, I was in school. And they were talking a lot about 1984. And it was 1984 when I was a kid. And they were talking about the book, 1984, that was written in 1949, about what life would be like in 1984. The kids and the teacher were talking about the screens and Big Brother and government watching you. And I'm sure at the time, but I was a kid, so I didn't really, understand what everybody was talking about. They were trying to find parallels between current government and what the book's dystopian society and manipulative government was, and tried to find similarities. But over the last few years, we keep hearing about 1984, Big Brother, Big Brother. And how much did George Orwell predict? And how much of that is true? And the more we progress in society, the more we see us falling towards that dystopic society. And if we don't realize it and stop it, it's going to happen. So the book and the movies, I actually just saw the 1953 version movie. I like watching the most early of these movies because of the authenticity of it. I understand. I think there was one with Andrew Garfield, who I love, one of my favorite actors. I think he just did another 1984. I haven't watched the recent ones, but basically it's this government where you have Big Brother. They're watching you in your homes. There's a screen. They're there. They know they're there. They're watching you when you sleep. You have to check in. They're always looking for subversion, or obstruction, or somebody that is not of sound mind. They rewrite history. So however Eurasia or Oceania or whatever that where you live, where the war between Eurasia and Oceania, how it started and who's winning, apparently they are rewriting history. They also give you a language in the book and in the movie from the 1950s. They are rechanging terms. They're rechanging the dictionary. And they're rechanging words. And so when I've been hearing about 1984 going, it's 1984. And I forgot a lot of the elements in that has come out. The totalitarianism, the surveillance, the thought control. Another thing they have is the hate, where there has to be this 2 minutes of hate. Or they in the middle of your day had to remind you, so that in case you started getting comfortable with your life, this is in the 1984 movie and book, you had to stop and hate. Scream at the screen, scream at and it's interesting because I was looking more at it as, in the 1980s, you had all the pink and the hair and the music and the moonwalking and the Michael Jackson glove and all vitiligo and all that other stuff. That's not what it was about. It was about where is the government going to be in terms of surveillance, in terms of rewriting history, in terms of changing your discourse, in terms of being involved with who you date, where they're arranging the marriages, as opposed to because love could cause some unpredictable patterns to your behavior. They don't let you fall in love. They restrict that. This is within 1984. And so the similarities that many people have kind of looked at that we have today, as compared to that, is, looking at the modern technology, the CCTV, the facial recognition, where government is always watching, our telephones, our computers. I was talking to some friends because we're going to be going camping about, some jet skis, and I couldn't rent a jet ski, so we rented something else, or, whatever. And then all of a sudden, all my computers are bringing up jet ski ads. It's like somebody's watching, they're listening. And, in terms of the social media, there's this constant like data collection and storage, and they're learning us. And when they learn you, that they could then manipulate you. And that's kind of something we have today in terms of the hate, the 2 minutes to stop your day and hate. We're getting that from the media, from social media, from, where, oh, wait a second, we haven't said something bad about the current president, so let's say that now. Let's say, yeah, and there's always this, if you, even when you're trying not to watch in movies in Hollywood, they have to be anti, Trump or anti whatever. And so there's always this, or you have, the GOP anti-Dems, but there's always this, we got to make you mad. Why can't we be bipartisan or nonpartisan about stuff? Why can't we be excited about no tax on tips? Why can't we be excited about better nutrition for SNAP programs? Why can't we all be in agreement on securing our border? But it's all about the hate. It's all about disagreeing. And they keep that up. And so it's kind of fascinating in terms of narratives and propaganda and suppression. When doctors were like, look, can we get informed consent with the shot, for the COVID vaccine, because some people may have side effects. We're worried about the myocarditis risk. They were silenced. When people were talking about natural immunity, they were silenced. But they were like, but wait a second, natural immunity worked before. I heard a lot of people bring up 1984 when it came to the mandate, when it came to the whole COVID thing and masks. It got pretty dystopian. It's pretty kind of weird. And you couldn't, as a doctor, say, hey, guys, I think the masks you're wearing aren't protecting you. You probably need N95s. Shut up. Don't say any of that. Just don't bring it up. Somebody fainted, went into either cardiac arrest or an arrhythmia after they got the vaccine. Maybe we need to, don't bring it up. You're going to scare people. That doctor that went into ITP and then died of a brain hemorrhage after he got the vaccine, he was an OB. Immediately, the family, got out there on the media saying he would have gotten the vaccine again. He supports vaccines. We support vaccines, just to get people off their case. Yeah, you're watching a lot of similarities. Now, maybe it's always been like that. I don't remember it though like that in the 80s, and I was just a kid. But did we feel that fearful of saying something? I watch these, remember the whole Johnny Carson and Jay Leno? They would make fun of stuff. I don't remember them making fun of politics. I didn't really watch a lot of late night shows. I watched some Saturday Night Live. I remember Adam Sandler and the Gap Girls, and I remember a lot of those. But now everything you turn on is political. It's almost like in order for them to have a show, and for them to be allowed to be behind a mic, they have to, bash Trump or be political or whatever, so that they have that cloak of protection. And you almost look at this fear, and I'm like, Jimmy Kimmel, you used to be really funny. Go back and be funny. But now people are scared of doing comedy. They're scared of doing comedy because comedy could be politically incorrect. And they could get themselves in trouble. So it's more dangerous to do comedy. So what protects them is throwing politics in it. That's why Saturday Night Live is just all now about, how much they could, be political with it. Because it protects them from people saying, oh, that was inappropriate. That was inappropriate. Although some of the things they do are still inappropriate. And so I don't know. I'm looking at this, and what I'm picking up on is the fear. People are afraid to say something. People are afraid that they are going to be silenced or canceled, or it's changed a little bit since Trump, won. But you still have this, what's going to happen when Trump leaves? And the dystopian risk is either side. It could be right or left. But we're letting this happen. We're letting AI into our lives. We're letting we're taking our phones into the toilet with us. Really? What sort of privacy is that giving you? So it's interesting. You guys take a look and see what similarities you're seeing. 1-877 Doc Dolly, don't go away. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So Brian says, so being a sugar daddy is not a good thing. So the sugar dad, where I think he's coming from is we spoke about the Sean Diddy Combs trial, where he was clear of racketeering conspiracy charges. Still found guilty for transportation to commit prostitution, but in terms of coercion, sex trafficking, he was cleared of those charges. And, this has definitely brought a lot of legal pundits talking about the whole sugar daddy or the whole, discussion of, being with somebody who is of high Hollywood or music stature, and what risks could come of it, even if you consent. And we spoke a little bit about this, where as the prosecution showed, and I'm still just blown away at how horrible that video was of Sean Diddy Combs allegedly in the video kicking and beating Cassie Ventura near an elevator. But as it pertained to these freak-offs and sex parties where some of the victims felt they were coerced and forced into it, the defense had texts where some of the defendants said, I can't wait for our next one, and Sean Diddy Combs said, you choose when, where, it started to kind of beg the question, how much of this is, was consensual and how much of this is, they consented, but then they felt trapped. And then how much of this was it never consensual? They were just trying to please him because he had something, over him. And it's not an easy topic, especially when you hear about some of the, long sex sessions and him hiring prostitutes for them. And I got to tell you, I've had a boring sex life. I was never involved in any of that. That would scare me, to have sex with somebody who was a sex worker and then get whatever diseases and be watched and videoed. And it's just horrifying. So of course, the average, the average person looking at this was like, oh my gosh, of course they were victims, but then on the other end, when you hear that, I believe one of the defendants, her rent is still being paid. I don't know all the details, but we're being told that, some of the relationships are still contractual. where rent was being paid, and they the text showing that there was consensuality of it. It's kind of it begs a conversation of what are people getting into, what are people expecting, what happens when things go wrong. And a big, concern that people had is, Diddy had the videos, and was there the threat of him releasing the videos if you left him? Okay, well, that's coercion, that's domestic abuse, but it wasn't really racketeering. And so a lot of people are looking at the federal prosecutors going, what were they doing? In terms of, trying to bust him under the RICO laws, which are used more for, mafia and crime syndicates. What were they thinking? And I don't know much about law because I'm a doctor, but the exposure I have to law as it pertains to malpractice, as it pertains to dental boards and medical boards and reviewing records, is one thing that I think law has turned into is let's just throw everything at the person. And then we can negotiate down and still win because we nailed them on certain charges. And I've also noticed, like I told you, with medical boards, when somebody violates, let's say they have a malpractice suit, they'll, because I look and see, there's a newsletter where doctors get busted, and it talks about what the doctors got in trouble for, what the hearings were, and it's never just usually one charge, one violation. On top of the violation, it's also poor record keeping, and this, and failure to this, and so there's multiple other things. That's why once you get in trouble, I mean, you wake up the sleeping giant. There's going to be multiple things added. So like, for example, you steal something. You steal something. Are you also going to break in and entering? Are you also going to get there's going to be more charges added to these things, attempt. So I'm no legal expert, but many people were looking at what happened where, did the jury get it right? Did they get it wrong because they were overwhelmed by some of the types of charges? I mean, if a celebrity organizes these freak offs, which apparently is something that's a thing, do they go to jail for the rest of their life because of racketeering? Do they, and then, I mean, where are all the other arrests of everybody else in Hollywood doing this? I think it's disgusting, these freak offs. I don't think they should be happening. But this was a litmus test of the law and how it pertains to this lifestyle that many people in Hollywood or the music industry have. And I don't know why he had to hire prostitutes for this. I mean, it appears people throw themselves, around celebrities to be a part of this. But because he did that, he got himself, into trouble, and he may be facing 20 years in prison. He may get off, or it be a lighter sentence. We'll see what happens with that. But, prosecution, just like you saw with Trump, just like you see with many things in law, they try to throw all these extra charges, and unless a judge throws them out, it could really burden a jury where they're looking at all the little pieces. And again, if somebody did violate all those laws, then that's appropriate. But if a bunch of them are being thrown on top saying, let's just see what sticks, we got to, figure that, because it costs us a lot of money. It prolongs the hearing. Now there's all this extra, you have to defend yourself against something that the mafia does that and I'm not saying this in defense of him, but I just am seeing this more and more where it's almost like a prosecutor or a board or whoever sanctions you wants to make sure they ensure success. Like they have to show somebody, you see, we got him, or we got something out of this, or we got some fine paid. So what we're going to do is show all the different violations and then negotiate down So they feel like they won, but we still won and we got something. Because if we just throw one violation at them or one charge, then they can, they can walk free, or then we don't get anything out of it. And so I'm sure legal, with the Karen Reed case, you had one of the defendants, one of the police, talking about her butt and about, talking about her with the other guys, and that's could have swayed the jury. And who knows? Maybe she was guilty, maybe she wasn't. I don't know. But people are now looking at what happened with the prosecution. That where their evidence might not have mattered because of all the other emotional and personal stuff that got thrown in. And so I don't really know what Diddy was guilty of. I don't really know what these women consented to, what they didn't consent to. Did they change their mind? Did they want to be a part of it and then realize, this isn't fun, I want out, but now he's holding this over me? I don't know. But I think law has really changed to the point where it's getting kind of ridiculous, where you're seeing all these additional charges, and if they don't make sense, I think it could really affect the case. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. So as we're coming into 4th of July weekend, I am so grateful to live in America. I am proud to be an American. And July 4th is not only celebrating America, but celebrating those who fought for this country, continue to fight for this country. July 4th is huge. Well, we're being told that several Southern California cities are canceling 4th of July events. They're going to cancel them. Why? Fire risk? Weather risk? No. It's because of immigration enforcement activity. Really? How many illegals immigrants do you have? It's 4th of July. You're a state of the United States. You're a part of the Republic. You're in America. But why would you have to cancel? Are you worried about crime? No. Apparently, they are concerned that there are going to be ICE raids. We would not be in this situation if we didn't have the mess that Biden left behind. And, being a daughter of an immigrant, I'm very, very grateful my father was allowed to come to this country. It took 20 years for my family to get approval to come to the country. They got approval. They came, learned the language, took the test, became citizens. But we have a situation here where people came here illegally. And, some of them are criminals that need to be out of here immediately, should have never been here. And so I think to try to get back at Trump, some of these communities are doing cutting off their nose to spite their face. We're just not going to celebrate 4th of July. So, Huntington Park has announced a 30-day pause on certain public summer events, including movie nights, citing growing disruptions caused by increased ICE activity in the region. If you are a family that's legal, have legal status to be here, you should be able to go to movie night. Why are citizens being punished because some illegal immigrants or criminals, not some are asylum seekers, but then there's paperwork, there's a process that protects them. I think it's a show. I think it's I get it. There are individuals that may have mixed status families. There might be some where they're legal, but they have other family members that aren't. And they are worried that some of those individuals will be taken away. Now, in any other country, Canada, for example, you'd be deported. Germany, Japan. The problem is they got in. See, these other countries would have never let it get that far. Biden did. So now we look like the bad guys deporting. Whereas when you read Canadians' deportation laws, when you read these other countries' laws, you're out. If you falsified something, if you cross the border illegally, you're out. So canceling 4th of July Freedom Walk, canceling other, it's a shame because we have a lot of individuals. I had staff who were legal citizens who said, my family came here and did everything right. It's no fair that, other people didn't have to follow the rules. But on the other hand, we really don't want individuals who were fleeing horrific, horrible conditions to not have a place where they're safe. But again, there's a process. If I wanted to flee, even if I wanted to flee to Israel, I still have to follow a process. If I wanted to flee to Germany, there's a process I have to follow. If you've ever traveled overseas, they won't even let you in until you go through customs, you go through their immigrations, and then you have to be very descriptive of what you're doing, when you're leaving. And you have to follow it to a T. And you have to follow their laws. All of a sudden, America suggests the same thing and everybody poops in their pants. It's, we have a mess. And we knew we were going to inherit a mess. And I don't want people fearing ICE if they have nothing to fear, if they're legal. But unfortunately, if somebody did violate the law, they are going to be, as Kristi Noem said, self-deport. In fact, I think some people are even getting money to self-deport. I think some of them are getting free flights. It's a good deal if you go through the proper process. But we really have a situation here that we would be more, looking like the bad guy is Trump as opposed to the bad guy being Biden. But the voters saw what happened. And so, how do you move forward? Well, first, you strengthen America and you let the celebrations continue. And America is a beacon, even for those who are going to self-deport. Kristi Noem and HHS said you could come back. Homeland Security said you could come back and go through the proper process. We do want immigrants. Again, my family, it took 20 years, but for others, hopefully it'll be a lot faster. And it is a lot faster. The average person doesn't. With us, America was not taking people fleeing the Holocaust. But my family was allowed to come in the 60s. So they did. They took it. And we were really grateful for that. And I am forever grateful. And I want to be there and make America strong and help other immigrants. But they have to do it legally, because no country allows illegal activity. No country allows illegal entry. And for those people that did do it right, their next question is, well, why should we do it right? We're having this issue we're going to be talking about later in the month with these student loans. You have a lot of people, millions of people going into default on their student loans because they're like, well, if the next president is going to write off the student loans, why pay? Nobody wants to be the idiot that paid off their student loans when somebody else is going to write them off. But I don't think anybody's going to write them off, because there's too many people who paid off their student loans that are going to be very salty and bitter that they paid theirs when other people didn't have to pay theirs. And so if somebody followed their contract, followed the law, well, you have to pay, government gives you money, then you have to pay it back. If somebody gets to bypass that, now it becomes anarchy. And people are like, well, then why should I follow the rules? If following the rules puts you at a disadvantage, then not following the rules, then I'm going to not follow the rules. And that's how stealing happens and anarchy. And so we need to get that back. And I don't want to see families broken up. None of us do. None of us want to see, people deported. But we shouldn't have been in this situation. We shouldn't be in a situation where now we have to figure out, is somebody a criminal? Are they not? Why do we have Trinidad here? Why do we have spies? We shouldn't be in this position. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.